Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the West Fargo City Commission meeting for Monday, April 16th. First item, Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. First item is to approve the order of agenda. I have no changes.
Motion to approve.
Second? Yes, sir?
I think we have a redundant item. 8 and 12 are the same items, so if you want to drop number 12.
Okay.
Sure.
Phase 2, yeah. We'll just delete item 12. Is that okay? Yes, Tina.
There should be the addition of air dogs for planning and
Okay. That's for the consent agenda, right?
Yep.
I thought it was on it, but it is not.
Oh, God. Appointment to the P&Z. Any other changes? If not, do I hear a motion?
So moved with changes.
Second with changes.
Moved and second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, approve the minutes of the April 2nd meeting.
Make a motion to approve.
Second. Moved and second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, building permits. Any questions on the building permits? If not, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Hear a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. On to the regular agenda. Item number 1, American Red Cross Sound the Alarm Fire Alarm Program. Lynn.
Yes.
Hi.
Thank you for allowing me
And Dale.
time. Appreciate it very much. I've got Dale Sprecher here with me as well. We're very pleased to partner with the City of West Fargo and the West Fargo Fire Department on this important event called Sound the Alarm, Save a Life. Will take place on Saturday, April 28th, and we will be canvassing a neighborhood in West Fargo and installing smoke alarms free of charge, and then also go into the home and provide some safety information in regard to home fire and help families plan their escape plans as well. We will have approximately 160 volunteers for this entire event that will encompass West Fargo, Fargo, and Moorhead, and then the Friday evening prior will be out in Castleton. So this is one of over 100 cities throughout the nation that will have this type of an event over a 3-week time period. As of today, we had 381 lives that have been saved by this program since 2014, and that's a national number, where we've been in the home, the family has had a fire, and people escaped. About 80% of the responses we make are home fire, and it's really a privilege to get to be on the preparedness side in addition to the response and recovery. Now, if you have any questions for either Dell or I.
Maybe you could explain how you pick the people that get the alarms?
Sure. The last time we done this program was in 2013, and we covered Brookwood Trailer Court. And we try to cover the housing developments or residential areas that are not up to current code for smoke detectors, such as interconnected smoke detectors, ones that just have a battery type smoke detector. and they're more prone to not changing batteries or taking smoke detectors down. So this is the areas that we chose. The one we're to choose this year is going to be between Cheyenne Street, 5th Street East, and Main Avenue and 7th Avenue. That's kind of the older neighborhood, so that's kind of the ones we're shooting towards.
As a note, these smoke alarms are 10-year lithium batteries that can't be removed. And we actually install them rather than just hand them over, and so that's a significant piece of this as well.
Great,
We've had a good response. So.
great.
Dale, I know we had incident Thursday and kind of related somewhat to this. Did that alarm go off? Do you know in that? Or was that a call?
It did in the individual apartment. They had smoke coming under the door, and it was just a matter of time before the hallway alarm went off. And it was a sprinkler building, but the sprinklers didn't activate.
I guess a prime example why we definitely need to do things like
The
that.
majority of our fires that are happening this year are cooking related, so.
Thanks.
Yep.
Any other questions? If not, thank you for doing this.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it.
It's our honor. Thank you.
Next, item 2, second reading of zoning ordinance amendment 4-460.9. Tim?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you recall, there's a first reading on this at your last meeting. The amendment was proposed to allow for the increased signage within a P Public Facilities District. We also have a conditional use permit to consider if that is approved. The conditional use permit to consider would require a second motion and also includes the lighting of the sign facing a residential district. Within that, our staff report has 3 conditions to include as conditions for approval. If you have any questions, I'm available. There's no public hearing for the conditional use permit though required.
Any questions to Tim? Commissioner Orsted is going to be abstaining, by the by, from this one. If not, do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve with the conditions.
Second.
Moved in second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
I'm sorry, do we need 2 motions for that, a second reading and then a motion to approve the conditional use permit?
Okay, yes.
Sorry.
The next one would be the conditional use permit, right?
Yep, yeah. So the first would have been the second reading, now the ordinance is in fact in play, so the second would be
Make a
the...
motion to approve the conditional use permit.
I'll second that too.
Moved in second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item 3, YWCA Grace Gardens parking reduction. Tim?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a YWCA facility just south of Lutheran Church of the Cross that we've heard before at this meeting. They're requesting a reduction in parking as provided for in section 4-450. This is our off-street parking requirements. Staff has no concerns. They have plenty of room on the site. Lutheran Church of the Cross has plenty of parking. It just, within their leased area, they don't have what we would typically require, so we offer this ability to reduce the parking. In some cases, we would look at trying to have shared parking agreements, things like that. They've shown some justification that each one of these units will likely only need 1 space, so we feel as staff they have plenty of spaces. We did add a condition that an agreement may be required with Lutheran Church of the Cross in the future if additional parking is needed. I don't know if you need to add that or not. But if you do, it wouldn't be something we would lay on right now. It might be something in the future. With that, I'm available for any questions, and the applicant has stated they'd be here tonight as well.
I know that the church is a big sponsor of this project, and I really don't feel it's necessary to get a letter from the church. I feel confident that they will allow the parking if that ever becomes necessary, which I really seriously doubt.
Yeah.
So. Any other questions of Tim? If not, do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Moved and second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item 4, second reading on rezoning and final plat approval of Mall Second Edition. Tim?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This application we reviewed last week. No changes. Applicant has provided a signed plat, so staff has no concerns.
Any questions of Tim? Again, this is second reading and final plat approval. Not, do I hear a motion?
The motion put on second reading.
Second.
Moved and second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Item 6, review a PUD amendment for the Pioneer Center, first edition. Tim?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We had received this request about a year ago from the owner of Bar 9 at the time, just to our planning commission as what's called a PUD minor modification. We didn't feel it met the requirements for an amendment. However, we had some letters from the property owners adjacent to it that they were concerned about it. So we, at that time, told them they should do a PUD amendment, which requires a public hearing and then approval by city commission. But the ownership changed in the bar, so they forgot about it for a year and now have come back asking for this again. The applicant wishes to do a patio on the, north sort of west end of Bar 9 here. You can see a picture of what they're proposing to do. Planning Commission reviewed it at their April 9th, 2018 meeting and determined beyond the conditions that staff had provided that because of the steep slope that they should have, or because of the adjacency to the road, that they should have some sort of protection. We talked about that a bit. They also talked a little bit about the buffering of the noise to the adjacent property owners because we received a letter from somebody. We talked about potentially having some landscaping back there to help with that. The applicant has returned with some proposals that I have in your staff report there. One thing they're going to have, because of the steep slope, like I referenced before, they have about 2 feet that they need to build a retaining wall next to that road. So they feel that that would add adequate protection against the roads or the traffic on the road next to it. They also would propose to have a 6-foot-high privacy fence in the back of the fence, or the area right here, hoping that that would add some buffering of the noise to the property owners to the west. And then they also said that they would take these existing trees here and put them back here in this buffer area behind the trash bins, hoping that that would help as well. Staff also has some notes from the PUD that was initially approved for Pioneer Center to try to reinforce that buffering. We're going to look at that. We do concur with the Planning Commission recommendation that they should deal with these and that we could include those in a PUD agreement so that if we have some concerns that these conditions can be required as part of the PUD. If they don't meet these, then we can make them meet them through the PUD. And then, of course, having this all go through liquor license review as well is a requirement. The applicant is here. There's no public hearing scheduled, but if you have any questions, he's available to answer them. I'm not aware of any public that would be here tonight, but potentially could be if you want to hear from them as well.
Go ahead. Any questions of Tim or the applicant?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, Tim. Okay, so I'm trying to make sure I understood you right. Do the neighbors know that this is happening?
Yeah, they've been notified. There was a public hearing at Planning Commission, so they did not come to that, but we did receive one letter, and I provided that in your packet.
Okay, I don't see that in here. Okay. So they're well aware of what's happening, I'm saying, though. I mean,
yep, we notified everybody within the...
Are you still going to have a public meeting? Another public meeting or not?
No, this would be it. So we have had the public hearing.
Okay.
Planning Commission.
So Tim, did they plan on having this open till closing time, this patio, till 2? Because noise carried, especially on a quiet night or whatever, the noise can carry. I just wonder if there's a possibility to limit the time it's in use, and or if we have to limit it, can we put time limits on it so they're not out there at 2 in the morning, 1, 2 in the morning making noise?
First, to answer, we could, within the PUD, limit that. Just like a conditional use permit, we have that ability within the PUD to do that. The applicant did state during the public hearing that they plan to have it open until 2 in the morning. They do not, they said in the public hearing that they do not plan to have any speakers out there. They have now installed these garage doors that you can see on the side that they would have open from the bar. So that was, they said that's already occurring. There are limitations to how much noise they can emit from the building to a residential area under our nuisance code, but usually those are really hard to get to, so there could be noise getting over there that we really can't deal with. So you may want to add some conditions if you feel it's necessary.
Okay, because the buffering they're proposing, those trees aren't going to do much for a long time. They're pretty scrawny. The other thing, I would assume this is just a rough, crude drawing. Yeah. There's going to have to be egress and stuff out of that. Otherwise, people would be trapped in there. The way it's
Yeah, that's
now.
part of our liquor license review. They probably have to have some sort of emergency egress, but they couldn't enter it through their,
Tim, I think we're in the process, right, Mayor, of changing our noise ordinance anyway. We want to change that. Would this fall under that jurisdiction as far as we're saying we'd like to see that 11 o'clock or whatever we determine time? Would this fall under that as well?
I don't know enough about that to answer that question.
I don't think so.
Yeah, you do.
We're talking about special permits.
Well, that's one more. Was that just for special permits we were referring to? So not for this, so.
Any other questions of Tim?
And Tim, you did mention they're gonna put some kind of reinforcement on that far corner there, because the street kind of comes straight in towards that corner and before it hangs a kind of a jog to the left. And if someone, for whatever reason, kept going straight, they could go right in that patio. So were you talking to reinforced concrete or bollards or something like that?
Yeah, you can see the road that Commissioner Thorstad is referring to here that comes through here. It is a private road, so we have a hard time enforcing the speed limits and things on that. That's what we talked a lot about, Commissioner, at our meeting, is bollards and such. The applicant has since come back to state that they need to level this out, so they're going to have a 2-foot high retaining wall. And if you'll see in the conditions, we noted that we would require the city engineer review that prior to issuing the permit. So if he needs bollards, I think the condition would...
I'd be particularly worried on that far corner where the street's coming right into it. If someone, for whatever reason, doesn't make that turn, they come right onto the patio and we could have a big problem.
Yeah, the applicant has indicated ability to do what he needs to do on this. I don't know if you want to add something specific.
Tim, okay, so if we allow this, do we have some way to come back if things get out of hand over there and close it down?
Yeah, I think...
Is this going to be like a special, I'm assuming it's not a conditional use permit, right?
Well, if this were zoned commercial, for instance, we wouldn't be reviewing it in this nature. The PUD, though, like I said, as a conditional use permit, similar structure, we can add that condition. I don't have it added here for you, so we'd have to add a condition that, you know, if noise complaints are received, that we could review it again or something of that nature. Otherwise, we're left to what our ordinances provide for.
I think, because this is a PUD, again, and a PUD is all about getting the neighborhoods to come together and to agree on something, and we're kind of not doing that right now, even though you only had one complaint. I think we should have something in there that says, hey, if you guys get out of hand or you don't do what you tell us you're going to do, i.e. example, like speakers outside, those are pretty portable. You can throw them out in 5 minutes and have a band and we won't even know it. So I think we should have something in there that says, if you get out of hand or something, we can come back and pull that and say, no, go back inside. Does that make sense, what I'm saying? Yeah,
we've used language like that in our conditional use permit, and John, I'd recommend adding that similar language. So maybe an added condition that if complaints are received, that the city could review the PUD.
You're right. I just want to protect those neighbors as well over there. Because that whole area is, yes, it's in a residential area as well. All those retirement homes behind it. So I just want to make sure they get their fair, shake in this.
Yeah.
So if we can do that, I'm okay.
Yeah, if we have the opportunity to make some changes on it, because I do worry that, people can be out there talking and laughing, and it's going to be pretty loud at certain nights.
Especially at 1 in the morning or something, 12 o'clock. And
so if we get feedback that it's noisy, I'd like the opportunity to change it, and not even necessarily close it, but limit the hours on it.
I think that's a good idea.
Why don't we just limit the hours on it now then? Instead of waiting for that to happen,
because
you know it's going to happen, Mike.
Yeah.
I think
you know it's going to happen.
I think they should get an opportunity, don't you think?
You know it's going to happen.
Well, I don't know that, but
I'm willing to give them a chance. I'm willing to at least, we can always come back. We know we'll hear about it, so.
You want to hear from the applicant at all, or is it necessary?
If he so wants to.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. I don't plan to have any bands or any speakers on the patio. The patio is only 10 feet wide, so there's no opportunity, even if I want to. There's no room to have a band or speakers, so there's no plan. And I want to be a good neighbor, and I'm going to respect the neighborhood and the neighbors, so I will comply with whatever the commission wants me to.
Yeah. I think you just said the magic words. You want to be a good neighbor, and, you know, we're going to hold your feet to the fire a little bit, I think, to
Do you
do
have
that.
bands on the inside?
I'm sorry?
You have bands on the inside?
Yes, I do.
So you're gonna have the doors open, right?
Yes, most likely, but I can close it at a certain time.
You know, sir, as it always is, my concern isn't necessarily about you. You look honest and like you're gonna do what you say.
Okay.
But you're welcome, but you just bought the property. What's to stop you from selling it in a year or two, and then this is already there. So we have to look for the future as well. I totally understand where you're coming from, but I don't think it hurts to put something on there that says we have the right to come back in. And just, you know, if you sell it, for an example, and they abuse it, then we can come back. I think we should do that. Only because because it is a PUD, and that's why we do PUDs.
I understand, and from my understanding, the bar hasn't really received any complaints about noise in the past. I know they had bands in the parking lot, but that was with special permits, and I'm not aware of any complaints.
I haven't received any either, so I'm not, so I just think we
plan
should
to
protect
continue
ourselves.
that pattern.
Any other questions or comments?
Thank you.
Thank you. If not, do I hear a motion?
Make a motion to approve with, are you gonna bring it back to us, Tim, or how do you wanna do that?
If you want to add that condition, if you want to have timing, or if you want to add the condition that we would bring it back if complaints are received.
I want to add that, for sure.
We can do that tonight.
We can do that now and just add it in there.
Yep.
I think I agree with you, Commissioner Simmons. I think we can give him a chance. He understands our concern, and I think we're going to have a very low tolerance of noise there. So you're going to have to be aware of that. You know, if we get complaints from the neighborhood, we're going to have to put some severe limitations on that. And we very well might, but I guess I'm willing to give him a chance, and I'll second your motion.
Any other comments or questions? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried. Item 6, first reading of proposed ordinance number 1120. John.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the commission. Before you, you have a proposed ordinance that really came out of a discussion that Tina and I were having regarding the ability of the commission to take action against applicants that may not be in compliance with city codes. And so this is an ordinance that I proposed. It has been utilized in some cities that are not in the area. And what it does is it requires as a condition of approval for any type of city approval that they have to comply, that the applicant has to comply with any legal requirements, which would be statutory or ordinance requirements. They have to be paid in full, or not paid in full, but in not behind in any of their fees or charges or taxes that are owing to the city when they're applying for a permit. And they're in general in compliance with all ordinance requirements or other city approvals. So, for instance, if you have a business that you placed a condition on previously, they're violating that condition and they come back to the council for, say, a liquor license or some other type of license, they would not be able to get an approval unless they were able to demonstrate to the commission that there's sufficient safeguards in place to assure payment, or that there'd be a hardship that would be affected by not giving the approval, and that authority is only by the city commission. And this really accomplishes two things. It ensures that the applicants that are coming before the city are in compliance with all the city ordinances, and at the same time it gives you as a city commission the ability to have that safe harbor protection to waive those requirements if there's a hardship, or if somebody's purchasing a delinquent property and they've said, I will bring up the taxes up to current status. This is the first step. What would happen then, if you approve tonight's first reading, we would have a second reading of the ordinance, and then we would also prepare a certification that would go along with all city approvals, where the applicant would certify in writing that that they're in compliance with the ordinances, that they're in compliance with whatever fees they owe the city or taxes, and they would have to sign that certification. And so it would provide the city the ability to double check and make sure that the person that's applying for a permit is in full compliance with city ordinances.
So John, what if they don't comply with this?
Then you would, for instance, if they applied for a building permit and they weren't in compliance with, say they were in violation of a liquor license provision, the city wouldn't give them a building permit then. Unless you waived that and decided to give them a building permit. So it really puts the onus on the applicant to make sure they're in full compliance with city ordinances.
And what if something has already been done and it's completed?
If it's in violation of an existing ordinance, then you wouldn't grant them a building permit or any other approval until...
Another project or something different, you mean?
For something different.
I guess my point is there's no dollar signs in here. I don't see any skin in the game as far as putting any penalties on them.
The penalty is they don't get that new permit. So for example, or a liquor license. So for example, let's say they violated a building permit requirement and they went ahead and constructed the building without a building permit, and then they come in for a liquor license. You wouldn't approve their liquor license then, period. And so, yes, there's no dollars associated with it, but the value is they can't get additional approvals from the city. So for a home contractor, let's say they were delinquent in their property taxes, you wouldn't be able to, the city wouldn't issue them a new permit. So it's a very powerful tool that they want that new permit for that different project. They have to come into compliance on the old project.
Okay.
So that's the hook, and it's a great question. There is no penalty associated with this, so I like to deem it the good person ordinance. If you're in full compliance with all the city requirements, this doesn't affect you at all. It only catches the people who aren't in compliance, and it still allows you as a commission to make an exception. And I've seen this happen where somebody will buy a dilapidated house that's way behind on specials, and they want a building permit. You as a council can say, or a commission can say, we're glad that you bought the property, we'll waive the requirement, and we'll issue you a building permit.
Okay.
So John, it sounds like a common sense kind of ordinance. Question I would have is administratively, how is the building, every time someone goes into the building permit department, we're going to have some kind of system set up that finance knows exact, because there could be a lot of things they could be out of whack with. I mean, it could be cumbersome administratively to keep on top of this, unless you keep a naughty list now. I don't know.
Well, one of the things that we had discussed when we were talking about this ordinance, John said the follow through, the actual checks and balances is what's going to make this a usable ordinance or just an ordinance that sits in the books. And so we plan on, as he said, we'll have this certification form, and then we'll have tasked to one of our staff people that they have a list that they go through, a checklist of places where they'll check and then get back to whether it's building inspection or planning and zoning or wherever the application came from, and say, okay, based on our interactions, this is what we know. Or if we know that someone is in violation, or let's say they have delinquent bills with the city and all these, we would automatically have their name down, so that if they were to come in, it's like, well, you can sign the certification, but you're not being truthful because we know that this isn't up to date. You go get it up to date, bring us back proof, and then we'll consider forwarding the application. So we're going to work on a checks and balances. We have a little bit of time while John gets this ordinance through, but we do understand it's going to be complicated, but we think it's in the best interest of the taxpayers that do come in and do follow the rules and do pay their bills and are very conscientious. But it's all whatever you guys would choose to do with that. But I thought this was a really good way to go to keep it an even playing field.
Any other questions of John or Tina? If not, do I hear a motion to put it on first reading?
I'll make a motion to put it on first reading.
Second.
Moved and second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item 7, approve initial KLJ construction engineering contract. Chris.
Mayor and Commissioners, in front of you here this evening is a proposal for a contract with KLJ Engineering to do construction engineering for Phase 2 Cheyenne Street. What's a little different in this contract, this is initial contract for hourly rate not to exceed $250,000 for the initial basic services, which is the setting up all the survey files, initial project staking, pre-construction conference, utility coordination, those type of things, and also going to allow us to sit down with the contractor and discuss what his schedules and operations are, so we can better scope out the planning and staffing needs for the full contract for the full reconstruction. So this, at that time, once we have that initial project scoping, we'll come back with a second contract for the full amount for the construction of the entire project. Like I said before, it's not a fixed rate that we're used to. It's about a 10% for a lot is the ballpark that they estimate for most construction projects. So I'm available for questions.
Any questions of Chris? If not, do I hear a motion?
Make a motion to approve the contract?
Second.
Moved and second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item 8, review the Department of Transportation selection to construct Cheyenne Street Phase 2. Chris.
Mayor Commissioners, a bid opening was held by the DOT on Friday for construction of Cheyenne Street Phase 2 and the interchange. The parent low bidder is Northern Improvement Company for a total project cost of $41,975,511. West Fargo's estimate share of that is $19,403,134 and some change. It's kind of interesting, Northern Improvement is parent low bidder. They also were selected as a project for Phase 1, and they also have the project for Cheyenne 32. So they're going to be busy. It's nice to have one contractor coordinate everything. The DOT is asking us to concur with this amount and for them correspondence.
I agree with you, Chris. I think it really is to our advantage to have one contractor doing the whole project. And I think we all know that Northern Improvement does good work. And I really think this is, again, way to our advantage to have this.
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
sir.
Just add one thing for the minutes is that this is Street Improvement District 2250.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? And when are they going to start? Well, the snow will be gone by June, I'm hoping.
Well, Dustin made a comment this morning about the concurrence, thinking that usually it takes the DOT a couple weeks to get this letter out to us. Well, they got it here in the same day they had the bid, so DOT wants this project started pretty quickly. They're asking us to respond by April 23rd. We're going to respond tomorrow, and I think everything will be going pretty quickly. They're pretty anxious because they know the interchange work's going to be a long season. Sure. So earlier they get started, quicker they can get their project done.
Great. That's great news. That's great news. Glad to hear that. Any other questions or comments? If not, do I hear a motion to go with the DOT's recommendation?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any further? Make sure. Yeah, 2250. You got that. Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item 9, alternate project concepts for Street Improvement District number 2249. Dustin.
Mr. Mayor, just before you leave that item, I just wanted to let the commission know that at last meeting, the commission had voted to make the offer of just compensation to that landowner and authorize us to proceed with eminent domain. I just wanted to let the commission know that we did reach a settlement with the owner for the amount that the commission offered, plus the value of the temporary easement. So we did not have to go through eminent domain, so the property acquisition for 2250 is largely wrapped up.
That's even better news. Again, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 9, alternate project concepts for Street Improvement District 2249.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the commission. In your packet, we have prepared some additional concepts for the intersection at Cheyenne Street and 7th Avenue East. 7th Avenue West. At our February 5th commission meeting, we discussed some options with the roundabout that we had been looking at. We watched a video. We had spent a couple months putting together some conceptual layouts with the roundabout, but at the February 5th meeting, we started discussing, the traffic functionality. How is this going to perform under certain traffic conditions? Is it the best suited option from a traffic operations standpoint? And at that meeting, Chris and I shared our concern that from a traffic operations standpoint, we will have some challenges during the peak hours of the day. But again, the reason why we were looking at a roundabout was from an aesthetic standpoint, that transition into our newly developing downtown. But from that concern of traffic operations, we discussed possibly going back to the traditional traffic signal system at this intersection, and then look at aesthetically what can we do that keeps that same goal of having a nice transition, welcoming drivers to the downtown area. And so what we provided in a packet is just a couple quick options that show using some decorative paving in the intersection, whether we raise that intersection and use decorative paving, or just keep it at grade and use the decorative concrete. Those are still yet to be decided on. And then we could look at whether we add some monuments to the traffic signal heads themselves, or build kind of what we show in this rendering here as an archway. And it can say anything on there, obviously, but really trying to hammer home the point that we can achieve our goal of having a nice aesthetic transitional intersection to the downtown area without having to do a roundabout, so to speak. So I think what we wanted to get across today is, here's some quick concepts, and then look for direction. Is there still a strong desire to stick with the roundabout, or would you prefer that we kind of leave that concept and now pursue back to where we started with, is a traditional traffic signal system with more of an aesthetic design?
From my perspective, I don't think I heard anybody say that called me or talked to me say that they were in favor of that roundabout. So, I just think I think this is a better idea, and it can look nice without forcing in a roundabout, as far as I'm concerned.
And the one thing I didn't mention here, we did talk about it at our last meeting. To go with a roundabout the size that we needed to have decent traffic operations, we were going to have to encroach significantly onto the church. We would have to buy significant land from the church property there. With a traffic signal system, this option here, we won't have that issue.
Justin, I feel the same way. I've had, many people say they don't like the roundabout right now. Maybe we're looking too far out. But I definitely agree. We can make this look very nice. And I think you mentioned it actually at the last meeting, even if we go with the street lights now, that's not to say 10 years or 7 or 5, we can change over. And it'd be a lot cheaper than trying to put in a roundabout and take it out. So I say we stick with the lights and do the best we can for now.
Good point. I'm glad you brought that up. Yep. Very true. So 10, 20 years from now, if we feel like we're ready for a roundabout here, much more efficient to change to a roundabout versus the opposite way of going from a roundabout to a signalized.
From a traffic situation, does a elevating that intersection up a little bit, I know we've done that in the south side on some, does that help slow down? Because if someone has a green light, will that slow them down a little bit so they're not zipping through there?
Yeah, in theory, it provides the traffic calming, you know, so people don't want to take a significant jump in grade like that with their vehicle. It doesn't fix it 100% of the time. There's always someone that wants to drive by a little recklessly, but yeah, it certainly will slow the majority of traffic down to the point of, you know, gotta go slowly over a bump. It's not a speed bump, but it is.
It raises a little bit, so it causes at least a lot of people to slow down a little bit.
Right. Where we have this, over by Freedom Elementary on 26th Avenue, just a couple blocks west of Veterans Boulevard. That is a raised intersection. We used stamped decorative concrete in that intersection. Certainly feel like traffic does slow down there, but I'm guessing you'll catch one or two people here and there that still speed over it.
And Chris, as far as maintenance, is it a challenge for your guys to plow on it or anything else?
Thanks for throwing one my way. But no, it's not a maintenance issue. It's a gradual slope up there, and all our maintenance equipment can easily make those type of vertical changes. So we can just add on what Dustin was saying. When you start adding a different color out there, different texture, and any type of vertical difference, it really changes the culture so people know they're going someplace and they need to change whatever they're doing. So when they hit that with their tires, they'll hear a noise and make them look up from their phone or something. So I think that could be a very good option.
I agree with these guys. I think the roundabout was, you know, it's something nice to look at, but I don't think that should be in the plans. No, I like this a lot better. The sign can be under discussion. I get a little worried where it's positioned in your picture here. I could see someone running into it, but
Must have put that one.
and if we could get some decorative lighting in there, I know your program probably only has the standard issue ones here. They don't have the decorative, and I think that would improve the look of that intersection as well.
Absolutely, and I would offer that we come back again. I know this has been here a few times now already, but I would offer that we bring back another round of conceptual layouts, a little more detailed, maybe have some discussions on, you know, are we going to put an archway over here or not? I mean, we haven't gotten to some of those level of discussion. I think what we wanted to point out is certainly that we can make an intersection look fancied up, make it look like a gateway into downtown without having to put in a roundabout.
Okay.
I like it.
I don't, John, I don't think we need to take a vote on this. We just, I think, are all agreed that roundabout is out.
Is there any comments from the...
Oh, yes?
But if you hear anything from the church?
Does anybody wish to speak to this?
Are they from this church?
Must be.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. I'm a member of Community Presbyterian Church. My name is Michael Mashesky, and I do have a question on encroachment. Would the new design concept still require encroachment on the church's property?
No, it would not.
Okay.
No.
Would it affect at all the like the parking access in any way to come in or out of the parking lots?
I apologize. I'm gonna spend 2 minutes and connect here so I can pull up a visual. It might help with the...
I don't imagine, Chris, we're just putting stoplights up there. We're going to do anything.
It matters how wide of sidewalks we want to put in the area and things like that. We may recover some of our right-of-way that the church is encroaching on right now. For their first row parking farthest to the west side is actually part of that is on city right-of-way, so we may have to recover some of that just to make sure we can provide proper right-of-way and access, mainly for pedestrians. We would have to take a look at their access to the north. My guess is,
Is that a pretty wide sidewalk now, Chris?
yeah, that's what I'm looking at. I'll take a look at it. We haven't gotten that far into design yet, and I just know that they are encroaching partly onto our right-of-way, and if we can save that parking for them, because I know their parking is premium for them, and if we start eliminating, we take anything away from there, they probably lose spots, and that's probably not our intent. But we want to make sure we do that. I don't think the access on 7th Avenue will really be affected. Especially at times when they're using it on Sunday mornings, it's probably not going to be an issue getting out there. Usually, there's going to be a big enough queue during peak hours of people trying to get through this that it'll probably make them to right in, right out, so they can't get out anyway during peak hours, or they want to go west.
It's like that now, though, probably.
Yeah, it's probably that way now, so it probably won't be a lot
I don't
of
think we're going to change anything, actually.
I actually might get more gaps when they're actually, when it's going north, south, east, west, so. I think it's a nice spot for an intersection. I don't think it's going to really affect too much in that area. I think more of the aesthetics and what we want to do with the intersection might affect some of the properties probably more to the north.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
My question was simply...
Sir, could you come up here and give us your name?
My question was simply about the lights that you were going to put in. Well, we've been talking about cars. How well will pedestrians be protected with these lights?
A lot better than they are now.
A lot better than they are now.
There's no protections.
They're not protected at all.
Okay.
There's going to be a walk, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's going to be a pedestrian sign with a walk that says when they can walk, a green, red. It'd be
the typical, the hand man signs that are out there. But if we start doing things like a raised pedestrian median, raised entire intersection, that would really draw all the drivers' eyes to what's going on. You see what's up here right now is actually, that's showing gray concrete that has a pattern to it. One thing we have to take a look at is how much of a downtown feel we still want to keep with this. Are we going to add right turn lanes in, left turn lanes? My guess is we'll probably keep the intersection pretty close to what it is right now. Maybe just have a through right and a left, so we can narrow down that crossing distance that pedestrians have, which also improve for better operations.
The next pedestrian crossway is 13th Avenue.
Correct. Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, I think, there's always a problem when you're at signal lights with left turners, is that when people are turning left, they're not always looking for pedestrians. And that's always going to be a problem.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Evening. Lee Oberon is a member of Community Presbyterian Church and a member of the session. Looking at the drawings that were shared in the agenda, we just want to point out a concern about the parking count. And again, we're generally, I think, in favor of having that north access change so we wouldn't have access on the 7th, but having the turn lanes, as it's shown on that current plan, would reduce parking along the street there, which we currently have as well, on Sundays. So I think at this point, it's just a concern that we want to share about any loss of parking, whatever that final design ends up being, and would simply ask that we would have some opportunity to have a dialogue about that.
Yeah, as Dustin mentioned, it'll come back to us after they do some preliminary work, and I think they'll try to save as many spots as possible, but you certainly will have another opportunity to comment.
Okay.
That's for sure.
I think we'll probably be reaching out to you guys also as we get farther. These are just some concepts that Matt Welly threw out here, and I think we'll get into design and probably meet with all the groups interested in the corner and probably the DBA there too. So
we appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
One of the things I want to say to you folks is I think that we heard you loud and clear. You didn't want a roundabout. So we heard you very much. So that's eliminated as of now. So now we'll discuss more where we can go. But we are thinking about you folks all the time as we do this, so you know.
Any other questions or comments before we move on? If not, we'll move on to item number 10. Review the bid tab for Sewer Improvement District number 1310. Dustin.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor and members of the Commission. Bear with me for a few seconds as I switch back. Okay, this is the sewer project that we discussed last meeting. We opened bids late in March for District 1310. Which is a redundant sewer force main project. At that time, we had just received a letter from the contractor requesting the city to withdraw their bid. We did discuss this further after our commission meeting and decided to not honor that request and simply recommend awarding the bid to KPH as it was submitted. So at this point, I'm going to recommend that we award the bid to KPH for their base bid plus alternates 1, 2, and 3, which totals $2,055,700.20. And if any questions, I can answer.
I'll make a motion if there's no questions to do exactly what Dustin said.
Second. Moved in second. Moved in second, down to the penny?
Down to the penny.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, review bid tab for street improvement 2244.
Okay. Thank you again, Mr. Mayor and members of the commission. This is a returned item as well. At the last meeting, we did table the recommendation to award. We have since answered the questions that were asked at that meeting and are hereby recommending awarding to Northern Improvement for their bid of $5,443,981.15. And again, I'm available for questions.
Any questions to Dustin? If not, do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved in second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item 14, review bid tab for street improvement district number 2253.
And thanks again, allowing me to steal the show here. This is a sidewalk project, and nothing overly complicated with it at this point. I'm just going to keep it brief and recommend awarding the contract to Key Contracting for their bid of $294,220.
We're on 6054. Right? Yep. Yeah, okay. It is 64. Any questions of Dustin?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Moved in second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item 14, review bid tab for street improvement district number 2253.
And once again, thank you much. Stealing the show. This project is for a street overlay in the Goldenwood subdivision as well as Pinewood subdivision. Pinewood's just on the north side of Main Avenue, kind of by the Taco John's area over there. You're going to recommend awarding the contract to Border States Paving for their bid of $249,942.00. Again, open for questions.
Yeah, quite a difference between the engineer's report there and the bid tab.
We're getting a little conservative, yeah.
Okay. Any questions of Dustin?
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Moved in second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item 15, first reading of proposed ordinance number 1121. John.
Mayor, members of the City Commission, this is a cleanup ordinance. Tina and I have been just going through cleanups for the city, and we found that the ordinance is still out in the book, the establishment of the Visitors Committee. That is currently being handled by the Fargo Moorhead Convention and Visitors Bureau, which is addressed in the first part of the ordinance. And so this ordinance is essentially doing a cleanup by removing the Visitors Committee, which is all those functions are currently being undertaken by the Fargo Moorhead Convention and Visitors Bureau. So it's a cleanup, can certainly answer any questions that you might have, but it's very simple and straightforward.
You're talking mainly the funds.
Correct. There's...
Correct. The ordinance currently already had stated that the funds were being forwarded as they were collected to the Convention and Visitors Bureau. But what we had to do is, North Dakota statutory rules require a certain committee to be set up to manage the funds of the lodging tax that are collected, and the capital improvement lodging tax or whatever. And so we had a committee set up in here that this particular committee by statute doesn't exist anymore. And so that had to be removed out of there, because otherwise it made it look like we had a committee that that doesn't exist, because it went to the Greater Fargo-Moorhead DVC. We still have a tourism and events committee, but it's not a function, it's not governed by North Dakota Century Code.
What happens though, Tina, if we want to go back to that someday? We don't want to give our money.
That is something the commission can do whenever you want to.
Wouldn't it be better just to leave it then, or not?
There's currently a conflict between the two in the ordinance, so it's a cleanup. So if you wanted to go back, I would just recommend in the future when you go back, just clean up revise the ordinance at that time.
Okay.
Any other questions of John or Tina? If not, do I hear a motion?
Make a motion to put it on first reading.
Second.
Moved in second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Tina?
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I guess my first question for you is, since this is a month that has 5 Mondays, I'm assuming that we do not have any need for the meeting on the 30th. That was, originally you said we would not have a 5th meeting unless requested. I haven't heard from Tim or Larry or Dustin or anybody that we're going to need that meeting. So my request would be to just keep that one.
We won't have that one.
Our first meeting, our next meeting will be in May.
Okay.
It's May 7th?
May 7th.
Okay. This Thursday, we will have a construction open house from 5 to 6:30. Melissa and her staff person, Ellen, have been working very hard on getting some information together, along with more engineering and Chris and quite a few others. So we're hoping to be able to provide a lot of information, as we have a lot of large projects going on this year that have a lot of impact to the community. So we're looking forward to that. We've been working closely with the Fair Board and quite a few others, trying to get some things moving along, so we'll keep everybody posted as we progress on those. One other question I have for you is, we have the capability to live stream your commission meetings, and I just wanted you to think about that and to let me know if that's something that you are interested in doing, since we do have that capability. So it's something to think on. They get to see you anyway, but on the channel. So.
This wouldn't really cost us anything extra, would it?
No, it would not. We already have the technology to do that, so it's already in place. And then the only other thing I have for you is Tim said he handed out the final draft copy. So I look forward to you reviewing it and making sure that your changes and requests are in there, and any other comments come back, so we can keep the process moving forward. Other than that, we've been busy with budgets and all kinds of fun construction projects. I just forwarded to you the newest construction update to all of your email addresses. So
was that 5:30 to 6:30 or 5?
5 to 6:30.
5 to 6:30.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else for non-agenda items? If not, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you, everyone.